Imagine an old story, a fable not written in any history book, but etched into the very essence of creation and greatness. In a small town nestled in a valley of the Swiss Alps, there lived two watchmakers, considered the most talented in the region. Both possessed hands so skilled they could craft gears smaller than a grain of rice, and eyes so keen they could see into the complexities of time itself. The first, Lucian, worked in a bright, vibrant workshop with large windows flung open to the bustling main street. He believed that immersing himself in the town's rhythm would bring him endless inspiration. Every day he heard the clatter of horse-drawn carriages on the cobblestones, the joyous shouts of children at play, the calls of street vendors hawking their wares, and even the fiery arguments of neighbors over trivial matters. Lucian was proud to be part of the community, to have his finger on the pulse of life. But every sound from the outside was an invisible thread, pulling his attention away from the watch. A sudden neigh from a horse would make his hand tremble, causing a gear to be misaligned by a fraction of a millimeter. A vendor's loud cry would startle him, causing a delicate second hand to bend in a way no one could see. He had to constantly adjust, repair, and sometimes start all over again. His watches, at a glance, were beautiful, ornately decorated and sparkling. But the most discerning connoisseurs, the most demanding collectors, all noticed something missing. They always had a slight imperfection, losing just a few seconds each day, a hint of haste, a hidden anxiety in their tick-tock, as if they were trying to keep up with the frantic pace of the street outside. They were good products, but they were not masterpieces. A few streets away, down narrower lanes, in a quiet alley where few people passed, was the workshop of Elias. His workshop was a world apart from Lucian's. It was a small, humble room with only a single, small, high window that looked up at nothing but a patch of clear blue sky. Nothing else. The only sounds in that room were his own steady, rhythmic breathing, a sound like meditation, and the microscopic, almost inaudible clicks of tiny tools as they touched metal. Elias did not hear the chaos of the town. He had deliberately designed his space to eliminate it. To him, the outside world was an unnecessary distraction from his one sacred mission, to create a perfect machine to measure time. His mind was a silent universe, a vast inner space where only gears, springs, and dials danced in a ballet of absolute precision. He could spend hours polishing a single jewel until it reached near zero friction. He could sit motionless for minutes on end, just listening, feeling the interplay between the parts, searching for any dissonant vibration. Elias's watches didn't just measure time, they seemed to contain the peace and order of the universe itself. They were accurate to the second, year after year, generation after generation. They lacked the flashy decorations of Lucian's watches, but they radiated a beauty of inner perfection. They became treasures sought after by kings, astronomers, and the wealthiest philosophers across Europe, not just for their precision, but for the sense of tranquility they bestowed upon their owner. Both men, Lucian and Elias, had the same training, the same finest tools of their time, the same passion for their craft. But only one created timeless masterpieces, while the other made good but forgettable products. Why? The difference wasn't in their hands, but in their minds. It was in their ability to control their environment, and more importantly, to control their own focus. This question about the difference between talent and genius, between busyness and effectiveness, is the very key that Napoleon Hill spent his life trying to unlock, interviewing over 500 of the world's most successful people. And the answer he found wasn't just for 18th century watchmakers. It's for you, for me, for any of us trying to create our own masterpiece, be it a business, a work of art, a happy family, or a meaningful life in a world more stormy and noisy than ever before. Stay with us, because the answer might not just change the way you work, it might completely change the way you see the hidden power within yourself. A power born from silence. Now, let's leave Elias's quiet alley and return to our world. A world where the chaos is no longer the sound of horse hooves, but a perpetual storm of data. The storm of the 21st century isn't a physical noise you can shut out by closing a window. It's an invisible hurricane of information, of stimulation, of demands for your attention. It screams from the smartphone screen you keep within arm's reach. The ping of a notification, and your train of thought is severed. It could be a work email marked urgent, creating a false sense of anxiety. A sensational news headline about a political crisis halfway around the world, stirring up anger or fear. A friend showing off a lavish vacation on social media, planting a seed of comparison and envy in your heart. In a single minute, your mind is pulled in 100 different directions. Your mental energy, your most precious asset, more valuable than time or money, is being shredded into tiny fragments, leaking out through 1,000 microscopic cracks of distraction. Every single shift in attention, even for just a second, consumes a significant amount of cognitive energy. We are living in a state of constant mental hemorrhage without even realizing it. Nearly a century ago, in his research, Napoleon Hill gave this state a terrifyingly accurate name: drifting. When you are in this state, you are no longer the captain of your life's ship. You are merely a piece of driftwood, tossed wherever the chaotic currents decide to take you. You lose your power of self-determination. Instead of acting with purpose, you merely react to everything. A negative anonymous comment on social media can ruin your entire productive day, gnawing at your self-confidence. A piece of constructive criticism from a superior sends you into weeks of self-doubt about your abilities. A small setback on a project makes you want to give up entirely, forgetting why you even started. In a state of drifting, you're playing chess, but not against a single opponent you can focus on to analyze and defeat. You're playing chess against 1,000 anonymous pawns attacking from all sides of the board. Your mind becomes an overloaded telephone switchboard, trying to answer every call at once, with the result that no conversation is ever complete. You are constantly on the defensive, constantly exhausted, and gradually, you forget what your original goal was. You forget the strategic move, the decisive checkmate that leads to victory. The chaos isn't just distracting you for a moment, it is stealing your dreams, piece by piece, day by day, by draining your energy and eroding your will. And what's the worst part? The ultimate irony? We are not passive victims in this tragedy. We are active accomplices. We voluntarily surrender ourselves to the chaos. We actively seek out distraction like an addict seeking their next fix. We refresh our social media feeds as an unconscious reflex the moment we have a spare second, hoping for a new stimulus, a morsel of trivial information. We turn on the TV not to watch a specific program, but simply to fill the terrifying silence in the room. Why? Because we are afraid of stillness. We are afraid to be alone with ourselves. Because when everything is quiet, when there is no external noise to distract us, we are forced to listen to the voice within. And that voice often asks the big, difficult questions we've been avoiding. Am I truly happy with this life? What is my purpose? Why do I keep procrastinating on my real dreams? The external chaos becomes the perfect excuse, a sedative to avoid confronting the chaos and the persistent questions within. But the price for this temporary comfort is far too high. The price is the potential never realized, the books never written, the businesses never started, and the masterpieces never completed. But what if I told you there's a way to build a fortress in the eye of the storm, a sanctuary for the mind, an inner citadel so strong that no scream from the outside world can penetrate it? This isn't a metaphysical idea or an empty promise. This is the core philosophy of Napoleon Hill and of so many great thinkers throughout history. Ultimate power comes from training the mind to ignore the chaos. Ignore here doesn't carry the negative meaning of ignorance or indifference to the world. It doesn't mean becoming a hermit and cutting off all contact. Quite the opposite. It is a deliberate act, a honed skill, a declaration of personal power. It's what's known as selective ignorance. It is the conscious ability to decide what deserves your attention and what does not. It's about reclaiming control over your most valuable asset, your focus. Imagine you are a great general, perhaps Napoleon Bonaparte or Alexander the Great, standing on a high hill, surveying the entire battlefield spread out before you. Down below, thousands of soldiers are clashing in a scene of utter chaos. The clash of steel, the cries of the wounded, the thundering war drums, all merge into a symphony of destruction. What would a poor general, an inexperienced general, do? He would immediately draw his sword and charge into the fray, trying to fight in every small skirmish, trying to put out every fire. He would quickly be consumed by the chaos, exhausted by countless meaningless confrontations, and ultimately, he would lose the entire war because he was too busy fighting skirmishes. But a great general does things differently. He remains still. He is motionless amidst the frantic movement. His silence is a weapon. He observes. He filters out all unnecessary noise. The scream of a single soldier doesn't distract him. A small unit being routed on the left flank doesn't cause him to panic. His attention is not on those meaningless clashes, but on the ultimate prize, the critical vulnerability in the enemy's formation, the movement of their main forces, the location of the opposing general, and the golden moment to launch the final, decisive, all-out attack. His silence and stillness on the hill are not signs of weakness or hesitation. They are where his power is condensed, gathered, and directed. Your mind is also a battlefield. Every day you face thousands of enemies trying to invade your attention, and you have to choose which kind of general you will be. Training your mind to ignore the chaos is learning how to stand on that hill. It's the ability to develop an internal filter that clearly distinguishes between signal and noise. The signal is the information, the activities, the people that are truly important for your long-term goals. The book you need to read to improve your skills. The deep conversation with a mentor. The period of intense focus to complete the most critical part of your project. The noise is everything else, which accounts for 99% of what bombards you every day. The pointless political arguments on social media you can't change, the office gossip, the vague anxieties about things you can't control, the unimportant emails flagged as urgent. The silent winner, the steady captain, the great general, is the one with an invisible filter in their mind. A filter trained through daily practice that automatically blocks out all the noise and only allows the most important signals to pass through. They don't waste energy fighting the noise, they simply don't let it in. Think of Thomas Edison, an ultimate model of focus amidst chaos. When he was in the great race to invent the first practical incandescent light bulb, the world around him wasn't just noisy, it was hostile. The most renowned scientists of his time publicly ridiculed him as a daydreamer, an amateur who didn't understand the basic laws of physics. The press, with sensational headlines, called him a fraud trying to raise capital for an impossible idea. His investors, who had poured money into his laboratory, constantly threatened to pull their funding after every failed experiment. And he failed. Not once, not 10 times, but thousands of times. Every single test filament that burned out in the vacuum was a scream of chaos from the outside world, urging him to quit, telling him, "Stop, you're wrong." But what did Edison do? He built a fortress. That fortress wasn't just made of brick walls. It had a name that went down in history, Menlo Park. Inside that laboratory, he created his own reality, a parallel universe where the only laws that mattered were perseverance and experimentation. He didn't read the articles criticizing him. He didn't engage in pointless scientific debates in journals. He ignored the chaos. His mind was focused on a single signal, a single obsessive question. What material, under what conditions, could glow steadily for hundreds of hours? He redefined failure. He didn't say, "I have failed 1,000 times." He uttered the immortal line, "I have not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." In the controlled silence of his lab, in that unshakable, absolute focus, Edison and his team turned thousands of failures into steps leading to success. Every piece of noise from the outside, instead of discouraging him, reinforced his determination. And when, finally, the carbonized filament glowed brilliantly, hour after hour, his victory was not a loud explosion to answer his critics. It was a quiet light spreading in the night, banishing the darkness and changing the world forever. He won silently, not by shouting back at the world, but by focusing on his work so relentlessly, so intensely, that all other noise became meaningless and faded away. That is the ultimate power of ignoring the chaos. It doesn't just help you focus, it creates a sacred space for creativity to blossom. It protects your precious mental energy from invisible thieves. It allows you to hear the quiet whisper of your intuition, of brilliant ideas, which is often drowned out by the clamor of logic and the opinions of others. When you stop reacting to everything, you start acting with purpose. You shift from the passive stance of a victim to the active stance of a creator. You are no longer a product of your circumstances. You become the architect of your own destiny, quietly but powerfully. So how can we, ordinary people living in the 21st century, build our own fortress? How do we become an Elias among the Lucians, a general on the hill, an Edison in our own world? The good news is that this is not an innate gift reserved for a chosen few. It is a skill, a mental muscle that can be trained through conscious daily practice. And here are the first bricks, the fundamental foundations for you to start building your inner fortress, based on the time-tested principles of Napoleon Hill. The first brick, and the most crucial foundation stone without which everything else crumbles. Define your definite chief aim. This is Napoleon Hill's classic term. You cannot ignore what's unimportant if you don't know what is most important to you. Without a compass, every direction seems right. This aim isn't a vague desire like, "I want to be rich," or "I want to be happy." It must be clear, specific, measurable, and it must burn so brightly that it becomes a positive obsession, the lighthouse in your mind. When the storm of distractions hits, you won't look at the raging waves in front of you. You will look at that lighthouse. Take the time to reflect and write it down, not on a computer, but by hand. I will earn X amount of money by Y date by providing Z service. I will become the leading expert in field A by the end of year B, by studying and practicing C every day. Read it every morning when you wake up and every night before you sleep. Engrave it upon your subconscious until it becomes a part of who you are. When your goal is big enough, clear enough, and important enough to you, the daily distractions will automatically seem small and lose their charm. You will have a clear standard for saying no to things that do not serve that aim. The second brick, seriously practice an information diet. You are careful about what you eat to protect your physical health, so why be so careless with what you feed your mind, which is even more important than your body? Start treating information like food. There is nourishing information that helps you grow, and there is junk information that only brings indigestion and sickness to your soul. Become a purposeful consumer of information, not a passive trash can. Start with a digital declutter. Unfollow all the social media accounts that only bring you negative feelings, envy, or anger. Ask yourself, does following this person make my life better? If not, hit unfollow without hesitation. Limit your time reading the news each day, perhaps 15 minutes in the morning and 15 in the evening, instead of letting it invade your entire day. Turn off all non-essential notifications on your phone. Every ping is an interruption, an energy thief. Leave on only the truly critical notifications, like calls from family. Every time you reject a piece of useless information, you are strengthening another stone in your fortress wall. Before consuming any piece of content, an article, a video, a podcast, pause for a second and ask yourself this golden question. Will this help me get closer to my definite chief aim? If the answer is no, have the courage to ignore it and get back to your important work. The third brick, create islands of silence in your day. Your mind, just like a muscle, needs rest after strenuous work to recover and grow stronger. In the modern world, we are constantly working our minds but rarely give them true rest. An island of silence is a pre-scheduled period where you are alone in absolute quiet. Commit to at least 15 minutes of this every day. No phone, no music, no books, no podcasts. You can practice meditation, focusing on your breath. You can take a walk in a nearby park, just observing the trees and listening to the birds. Or you can simply sit quietly by a window and look outside without any specific thought. At first, this silence might feel excruciatingly uncomfortable. Your mind, accustomed to constant stimulation, will start to scream, to rebel, to demand distraction. 1,000 random thoughts will surface. This is normal. These are the mental toxins being flushed out. But persevere. Don't fight it, just observe and let it pass. Gradually, day by day, you will learn to befriend the silence. And in that silence, something miraculous will happen. Your best ideas will emerge. Creative solutions to your most complex problems will surface from the depths of your subconscious. This was the secret of the watchmaker Elias. He didn't just work in a silent environment, he brought that silence into himself, into every cell of his being. And from that deep stillness, masterpieces are born. Let's return to our first foundational question. Why do some people sink and others glide in the same storm? Now you have the answer, not a simple one, but a roadmap. The secret is not a bestowed miracle, but a conscious choice, a discipline forged daily. It's the choice to build an inner fortress, brick by brick, with a definite chief aim, an information diet, and islands of silence. It's the choice to be the wise general on the hill, observing the big picture and waiting for the right moment, rather than the panicked soldier exhausted on the front lines. It is the choice to be Elias, creating perfection from stillness, instead of Lucian, who let the chaos outside shape his flawed product. The world will never stop screaming. There will always be new economic crises, pandemics, political arguments, criticisms, and ever more sophisticated distractions designed to capture your attention. You cannot control the storm outside. That is a truth you must accept. But you have absolute 100% control over the stillness within. True power doesn't lie in your ability to shout louder than the chaos, but in your ability to maintain your core peace, to stay focused on what truly matters, no matter what is happening around you. That is the ultimate freedom. Winning silently doesn't mean no one knows about your success. It means you don't need loud external validation to know your own worth. Your victory isn't the applause, the awards, or the number of likes on social media. Your victory is the deep satisfaction of completing excellent work into which you know you've poured your soul. It's the peace of mind that comes from knowing you are living a life true to your values, that you are walking your own path. It is the quiet, steady glow of Edison's light bulb, which would illuminate the entire world, not with sound, but with the value it brought. Right now, immediately after listening to this, don't just ponder, act. Start building the first brick of your fortress. Don't wait until tomorrow or next week. Pick one non-essential app on your phone and turn off its notifications. Right now, get up, go to a quiet room, and spend 5 minutes sitting in silence, just focusing on your breath. Take a piece of paper and a pen and write down the first draft of your definite chief aim. Don't wait for the storm to pass because it never will completely. Learn to dance in the rain. Train your mind, master your silence, and you will claim your victory. Not with a deafening bang, but with a powerful whisper from the depths of your soul. Imagine an old story, a fable not written in any history book, but etched into the very essence of creation and greatness. In a small town nestled in a valley of the Swiss Alps, there lived two watchmakers, considered the most talented in the region. Both possessed hands so skilled they could craft gears smaller than a grain of rice, and eyes so keen they could see into the complexities of time itself. The first, Lucian, worked in a bright, vibrant workshop with large windows flung open to the bustling main street. He believed that immersing himself in the town's rhythm would bring him endless inspiration. Every day he heard the clatter of horse-drawn carriages on the cobblestones, the joyous shouts of children at play, the calls of street vendors hawking their wares, and even the fiery arguments of neighbors over trivial matters. Lucian was proud to be part of the community, to have his finger on the pulse of life.